But we want to find out, when do we engage an architect? What goes into the process? How do you see what you do?
The questions to answer all in one statement. All right. How long have you got? Ultimately, when I bring it back to what we're doing, we're solving problems. And a house is a three-dimensional puzzle.
Yeah, exactly.
You solve the puzzle and then you address the puzzle. So I want to create architecture where you feel as though you're in it as much as possible and you're resonating with all the qualities of that landscape.
Are there any other things about your kind of ethos, values, that you would like to share with the audience?
It was such a beautiful country. Yeah, I get quite emotional.
Thanks for watching Home Run. Hope you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It will make the world of difference for us and be able to continue to bring epic guests and great content to you.
That's right. And speaking of guests, if you have somebody that you feel like they should be on this couch, put it in the comment section, and also put any questions that you want to ask in the comment section, and we'll make sure it's covered.
Back to the episode.
Welcome to Home Run. This week, we're with David Ponting, award-winning architect. David has done some incredible work, but we want to find out, when do we engage an architect? What goes into the process? How do you see what you do?
It's a lot of questions to answer all in one statement.
Get started.
All right, okay.
Sit tight, folks. It's going to be a great episode.
How long have you got? Okay, residential architecture, that's pretty much my gig. We do a little bit of commercial work, but I'm a registered architect. I get to spend time with people who want to do beautiful homes, typically. That's super exciting.
Are you typically operating in kind of the ultra high end, or would you even use an architect just for a more humble renovation?
Yeah, well, there's a massive spectrum to what we do. And yes, we do get to enjoy the ultra high end. We get to enjoy the little boutique renovation as well. It's really about what people want. Are they interesting people? Is the creative endeavor something that I really want to get into and get excited about? They're the projects I take on.
So are you a little bit picky?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, there's ultimately you want to enjoy the process. You want the clients to enjoy the process, and if the brief is something I'd think, well, look, I'm not really going to enjoy doing that. There's another architect who loves doing Tuscan villas. Let them do a Tuscan villa. I'd rather bring something more contemporary to the table, something that's more about the New Zealand landscape. And that can also be a villa renovation. It's very much a New Zealand identity as a piece of architecture. Tuscan villa, that's an imported exercise, not what I get excited about.
So how would you describe that contemporary that encompasses the Kiwi landscape?
I suppose we use the word vernacular in the industry. What architecture is historically understood to have worked, become habitual as a built form in the landscape. What materials do you generally register? And I've always loved farm buildings. They've actually been one of the key drivers to the sort of architecture I've produced, and corrugated iron is one of those materials. I just love the stuff. Wow. It's a really humble material. It just sits in our landscape like it belongs, because it's one of the materials that's been there ever since we started building as Europeans in the New Zealand landscape. Beyond that, the architecture that's evolved out of, I'll call it that rural vernacular, that agricultural structure, is typically very simple, very functional structure. There's a degree of rhythm to a wool shed. There's post, roof, post, roof, post, roof. Tractors can get in and out. Cows can get in and out. It's and there's a beauty to that rhythm.
Who would have thought the humble wool shed would be inspiring outstanding architecture?
Oh, it's there's some beautiful buildings through the central Otago. You go for a drive from Queenstown to Dunedin, there'll be moments where you just stop and go, wow, look at that.
It's quite true. I mean, I haven't driven there as much as I've driven in the central North Island, but I've often been just tearing up the road and just seen an old dilapidated rundown. Quite often it's like a red colour, but there is something beautiful just sitting there in the landscape. I see what you mean.
Yeah, so there's a humility to it. And I think that's also something that represents the New Zealand people. Typically, broadly, we have this tall poppy syndrome that can cut in, but it's ultimately there's an appreciation for what is needed, what works, and there's not many people who will extend beyond to how much more can you add. That architecture can start to look a little bit like it's trying too hard.
And David, like I've been a big follower of your work and some of the amazing work that you've done. And that's very apparent in your work, especially in sort of the South Island, where you're almost letting the land speak for itself, but merging in the art to it. How do you balance that?
Well, I suppose it's being respectful for where you are, firstly. Respectful for the contour, respectful for the outlook, respectful for the materials that are going to become part of that harmoniously. I think that respect is something that you bring into all parts of the process. There's the sculptural identity in the landscape. There's what's the function of the building. Let's make sure it works. Before you even resolve what the look is, you've got to know that the program of the building, its core purpose is seamless and flows, and that people enjoy being in it.
And is that, so when you look at that, when you take on the project, is that what inspiring you, or a combination of that and the client brief?
It's definitely both. I put a lot of me into the work. I understand myself as a sculptor as much as someone who designs houses. In fact, the more the house can feel like an art object in a landscape that happens to serve a purpose, the more successful it feels to me.
And how do you describe that, or encompass your vision to the client who may, or has there been opportunities where you might have struggled to communicate that with them because they're probably not looking at it from what inspired you, or the other way? You
definitely need to go on a careful journey forward. If you start, if you come up with a harebrained scheme that's just too strong or too big a leap from the core principles of a brief to here's this outrageous thing in the landscape that feels a bit alien to most people, it's a brave client that'll jump at that one and say, yeah, let's go, that's awesome.
Well, there must be some, the way you just described that made me think of that place. I think it's maybe in Piha or Raglan. It looks almost alien. I think it's like the X or standing on the V.
I've seen that, the black building. Yeah.
So there are some really incredibly bold things that are put out there, but I guess that matches a client who wants that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, you know when you've got a client who is up for it, because it's in their words, it's in their excitement, it's in the poetry of what they're requesting, as well as the visual imagery that most people are showing from when you first meet them. That dialogue around what it is, what is it that needs to be achieved, it's words and pictures. And so they're like ingredients, and you start sort of collecting what are the primary ingredients, what are the ones that fit this landscape, what fit the budget. There's how much landforming are you going to do around this? How much scope do you have to change that environment or blend into that environment? So there's lots of discussion points.
Are you finding, like, if you had your way, would you rather a prospective client came to you before they found the piece of land, or should they really have found the land first?
Both work well. And if someone's unsure about whether they can achieve what they want in a landscape, architects love going to site before it's even purchased, and they're able to give a lot of valued knowledge around the purpose. I suppose, will the purpose sit well in the land? And if someone's asking for a very tall building on a steep site, you start. But they want to do it for a fairly meager budget. You've got to say right from the get go that's going to be challenging. This site may not be the best one for you. And explain the issues of foundation costs. And how you've got to do much bigger foundations the taller a building is. Therefore, you don't want to be doing as much digging as that. If you can find a flat site, you'll find it's a much easier process.
You mentioned earlier, before we kicked off, that you see your role as a little bit of a game of two halves.
There is. There's that. The first layer is really scoping out how you're going to meet the constraints of the project, and the biggest constraint, the number one constraint, is the budget. You've got to start with a budget. It's in real estate, you hear about location, location, location. In architecture, you hear about budget, budget, budget. You've just got to respect that number, and you've got to work within it, and you've got to set parameters from the get-go so that you know your initial ideas aren't dreamland, unless a client has said, we don't mind if you show us dreamland. We want to see what we've asked for, and we'll find out how much that's going to cost. Those projects happen. They're amazing, but not many.
Yeah, exactly.
Most put a ring fence around. This is the number. You know, it can still be a healthy number, but it'll only go so far.
Yeah.
So identify what to expect. What set reasonable expectations so that everyone's on path to enjoy the process, as opposed to be let down somewhere down the track because you've sold them a dream and then said, but you can't afford it.
I hear you say reasonable expectations, although I just can't think of a time that I've talked with somebody who said, hey, I've just finished my construction project and it came in under budget.
Yeah. It's it's interesting how the budget evolves through a project, and it does. I know that most times when I sit down with people, they're telling me about their preliminary expectations of the budget. Yep. In all probability, they've looked ahead to the idea that it will probably creep. There will be inflation. We will get excited along the way. And we want to save a little pot of extra funds. And I find quite often that you discover what those funds are as you show the more exciting ideas. And people go, we will have that. We can see the necessity. We know that's going to grow the number, but it's worth it. We're getting the benefit of it.
Do you think there's kind of like a sweet spot when you're considering a piece of land and its context? And maybe you could talk about the things that you consider when you're looking at that. And is there sort of a sweet spot for what that budget should be so that you don't overcapitalize, but also so that you do capitalize and make the most of what's on offer?
Yeah. I think the sweet spot starts from what is the end value of a house going to be of a certain size, made of a certain set of materials. And that's a little study you do. You do that right at the very beginning. You brainstorm that.
How do you do that?
You're basically looking at how many square meters does the brief call for. And if someone says, I want a 4-bedroom home with 3-car garaging, 3 living areas, and an outdoor pool, it's a large house, that's probably going to be there's going to be 400 square meters minimum. Could easily get out to 600 square meters. So it depends how big do people like their spaces, how much flow, how much room do they like for hallways. And if everyone's different, you just never quite know what you're going to get until you've walked into the house they probably live in now. They say, well, here's my 8x8 lounge. That's what I want. This is going to be 600 square meters, not 400. So you resolve what's the likely square meter scale of the project.
Right.
Then you look at the materials that want to be that they want to be making this house out of. And if they're talking concrete, in situ concrete, you're going to be talking 15 to 18,000 a square meter in all probability. If you're talking high ceilings or big cantilevers, large window units, and all these things are wonderful in landscapes where you've got beautiful views, you want lots of glass. You want high ceilings to look up at the sky and embrace the mountaintops. Yeah, it all adds up. So you've got to say, all things being equal, knowing what you'd like, but knowing what your budget says, we're probably going to have to settle it around 12,000 a square meter. So you take your 600 square meters of necessity to meet the scale that was wanted. You multiply that by your 12,000, and that gives you a nice large number to say, well, how does that feel? And when they fall off their chair, you start talking about, what do you want to do?
Do we pare it back to 500?
Yeah. What's the number got to be? Okay, you want the number down at 6 million instead of 7.2. Yeah, we've either got to reduce the number of square meters, or we've got to reduce the cost per square meter. And there's less of the height. Right. There's less of the concrete. There's you start just cutting your cloth to suit what the budget says, unless people change their mind and say, right, oh, well, we really wanted the concrete. We really wanted it. We understand it's $300,000 more. We're going to bracket $300,000 for the premium value of that element. What can you do with that? So you're juggling the parameters to resolve what can the look and feel be, how large can it be, and when you've got that understood, then you can start designing a house. There's no point designing until you've squared away that really serious question.
And how much of that process is involved before we get to the design stage? Obviously, you've spoken about the budget and you've spoken about where the shortfall might be according to the budget. But what are the other steps that are very fundamental before you even get to the design?
Yeah, well, I suppose at the very outset, you've got to have a digital survey of the site. You've got to know the ground contour. If you don't understand your contour, you can't work accurately within it. You start making estimates that can lead to higher foundation costs than you might want. You've got to know your council constraints. What's the airspace you're allowed to build in?
Right.
And on small sites, that becomes absolutely paramount to know that airspace before you start thinking about how tall can it be, how wide can it be. There's obviously a cost that we've mentioned. The climate is crucial. Where's the wind coming from? You got to deal with that wind. We just do not want to design a house that is going to get where the spaces outdoor spaces are ruined by the wind just blasting through them and making it unusable for 2/3 of the year.
So how much of that comes down to site selection versus design?
When you buy a site, if you buy a hilltop facing southwest, you've just got to accept that you've bought the problem. Now you've got to design the problem out of it. And that's about creating windshields. The house might be a windshield with an interior courtyard to the northeast of a big living wing. But if it's glass both sides, you look right through the house at the view. You're in the sun, but you're still getting that frame of where you want to look. If southwest is the direction you want to look. There's privacy as a big one. Who's looking from the southwest, for example? If there's some big neighbours nearby, you want to make sure you're taking them overlooking your property out of play, so that you just feel as though you're in your own private little sanctuary.
What are some ways to, I guess, mitigate risk?
Well, there's a lot of risk. I'd love to say architecture is easy and building is no problem, but you obviously hear horror stories. And you hear horror stories generally because people haven't stopped. They haven't paused and assessed where is this project going often enough. You've got to bring someone in who independently assesses cost. Architects know a reasonable amount about likely cost, but they're not specialists. A quantity surveyor is a specialist. They measure. It's a scientific process. They take a set of preliminary design drawings well before construction detail is understood, and they can read into those early stage drawings where the money is going to be spent, what materials are costing more, what are costing less, where there's complexity, and they're factoring a dollar value across the project. It's an amazing skill to do that, and you get them on board, and they give you a report that's about 18 pages long. Like it's serious. It's sort of quasi accounting of a future moment, and that schedule includes everything you can think of, right down to the insurances, the portaloo, the fence, the scaffold.
Oh wow!
It's thinking about everything that's going to happen, the things you won't even see after the house is built, but was necessary for the construction program to work. That's on this massive great schedule, and at the bottom is a number that is usually a bit scary. And it jolts everyone back to reality. Everyone got excited. Now we have to cost engineer some of that excitement back out. But how do we maintain the joy and the spirit of the idea that was achieved, but bring it back to where it can happen, as opposed to as a great sketch, but it's worthless.
That's where you start to look at cost and the shaving of the cost per square meter.
You're really it's once again it's return on investment. Where's it worth spending the money? And where do you start saying, well, that was a nice to have, but we don't really need it. We want to make sure we achieve that magnificent kitchen, as opposed to have 4 en-suites.
So we've got clarity about what we kind of like. We've got a site in mind. We're chatting. When do you actually start to get us excited with a bit of a tease on what it might look like?
Sometimes it'll happen at these discussions during which we're still dealing with the brief, because you can do I do diagrams, little diagrams that start to express a three-dimensional idea in the abstract sense. But people's imagination it's just so wonderful to let them grab onto an idea and see their own leap from it. And what I hear back quite often affects which direction the design will go in. So these doodles, they're
is this sort of back of the napkin type sketching?
It is literally. I use a pencil. I don't use a computer to draw. I use a pencil, and everything I do is freehand.
Oh wow!
I've got a team that can sit there and tap these sketches I love doing into amazing objects on screen, where you're just blown away by how much it's expressing what can happen. And it lets people get very excited, very connected to the idea.
Could you perhaps tell us a story and show us from where to go one of these projects?
Story.
You showed me a sketch earlier that you mentioned happened quite early on.
Right, yes. Yeah. We've completed a beautiful home, what I think is a beautiful home down in Martinborough. And it's for a family that bought essentially a paddock amongst the vineyards. And so we resolved a very strong, bold solution because they wanted a sculptural answer. And it's a very singular form in the landscape. And the ideas that I had on site while we were first wandering the land just sort of landed on a bit of paper while talking down the pub.
Yeah, we'll bring it up on the screen for the viewers. If you're listening to the podcast, hopefully you're getting a visual anyway in your mind. But if you're watching, you'll be able to see this. Yeah.
Well, this sketch hit the page, and there was a wow, yeah, get it, understand what that's going to do. And I was just so lucky to have clients that were prepared to give me that much freedom to think as boldly in that moment, and hold on to the purity of the idea, because as you can see from the sketch, it's a very, very simple sketch, but the building has to be quite clever to contain everything it is going to need to do, and yet allow one slot of windows on one face as a starter for 10. Obviously, it's being a see-through building. There's obviously 2 slots. But it raises lots of questions. How do you make a building work if that's what it looks like?
Yeah, where are the other windows?
Yeah, where are the other windows? Where are you going to put rooms so that people can still see out?
Yeah,
yeah. So it's I suppose the imagery that can evolve from there for the viewers, listeners, is to see the rendering we then follow through with, which brings some quite magical qualities to the sketch. But I'm able to...
So what material is that you're actually using on the finished product there?
It's corrugated iron.
Wow.
Yeah, that is the woolshed.
Yeah.
That's the rhythm of openings.
Yeah.
Some solid bits to keep the wind out. You can come in with your tractor, roll the bale in there. It's also a very rural location, and so it just felt appropriate to bring this idea of agricultural identity to a paddock, and then see how to lay in the sophistication via very streamlined detail, and come up with an idea that's very pure. It's super simple on one hand, but there's some hidden qualities to it that you only begin to understand as you move through the building.
How into the nitty gritty do you get with the financials to try and massage this thing to?
Well, we have to talk at detail about the money, and that where the quantity surveying process comes in, it gives you effectively a roadmap for where the money is being spent, and you can start ring fencing certain items and ask, is that affordable? Can we keep that?
Yeah.
Or do we have some more money to spend in that area? Because it could be even better. But the analysis has to be thorough around what's the total number? Does it have to shrink? Can it expand? Where is it logical to pull money out? And where is it logical to spend more? Where is there a point where potentially for capitalization value you need to spend more?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're designing a 5-bedroom family
Does that
home,
ever happen where you're looking at a site and you're talking with a client about their budget, but you're looking at it and you just know that actually, spending a little bit more here is actually going to yield a more optimal result at the other end? Yeah.
It's the brave projects, once again, where that does happen. It tends to be larger land purchase, big views, and areas where the resale value is significant, where the ceiling can be quite open-ended. And as an example of locations like that right now, TRI, the golf course, up north of Parkery, that's an environment where there is a ceiling, but people are happy to go and explore how far to push it.
I say, how high is that ceiling?
Well, it probably depends what country you're from. And the Americans that are coming in here, if I had a client who went to Harvard, who we did a beautiful home for in Westmere, and he's a businessman, very clever. He did this 6-week school where you lived in a dorm with very successful business people from around the world, and this intense program study of the future of business was what they were there for. He said he came back with this understanding that for most of the people there, they added 2 zeros to every discussion compared to what he would think. And that's a very, very big difference. And so when we come to understand that for a New Zealander building a $1 million house can become an American building a $100 million house, that's the scale of wealth is beyond understanding and truth. It's chump change. What is being spent, because they'll spend $10 million and go, wow, look what we got. It's this incredible coastline. I'm looking at the hen and chicks, and I'm playing golf at the best course in the country. Just have to fly here to do it.
And that tends to be the case even in Queenstown as well.
Queenstown's getting a massive influx of Australian money. And there you can just add a 0. It's not 2 zeros, but still adding a 0. And it's a 3-hour trip. So the money coming into Queenstown and the quality of life it offers for people who have basically live in a desert. New Zealand's an incredible playground, and I have a feeling that's why you see so many architects doing so much beautiful work here. The opportunity is incredible. The landscape calls for beautiful buildings, not just your average drop it in there. Who cares?
And that's, I mean, equally exciting as well, from an architecture perspective as well. But how do you find that sort of changing the landscape for you as an architect when these type of projects are coming, especially, from foreigners? Because the expectations tends to be a bit different.
Oh, the expectation's very high. People who have worked damn hard to have that kind of income, they expect 5-star, 6-star service, and they don't tolerate errors, and that's understandable as well. They're spending a lot of money. So we're having to make sure in New Zealand that as much as we're growing to the challenge of these new ideas, our detailing is bulletproof. You've got to make sure you're assessing things very, very carefully, because if there's a fix required because a storm comes through, if the building fails, the architect's liable. You're just sitting there with a bullseye on your forehead because your name's on the drawing. So it's about being very, very thorough and having a technical team that understands the risk of any idea, and the construction systems that will manage the problem, de-risk the construction.
Does that then filter down the sort of the selection of the landscape artists and the builders who are building at that caliber?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's the companies that are building these high value homes. They've been doing it for a long time. They've survived the tough times. They've worked out where they went right, where they could have done it better, and problems don't occur because they're ahead of the game. And it's horses for courses. You get someone. They might cost a bit more, but they've got the processes and the systems in place to make sure that the client's getting the service they expect, and that no corner is cut.
And how do you find that like from your perspective with the client that is probably wanting a piece of New Zealand but isn't aware of, the culture, the landscape, everything that you described, how do you find that process of educating them to make sure that they what you're going to produce is something that's one with nature and is respecting that space?
I think the visitors to New Zealand are blown away by it, and I think there's a degree of awe about the fact that it's here, and don't stuff it up. Don't bring something that shouldn't be here and ruin the purity of what you've been fortunate enough to discover. So it's inherent in their intelligence and their appreciation for the opportunity. So that's really about just suggesting gently that that ranch architecture may not really look that good here. Have you considered this, that, and the other? And go and have a look. And because there's plenty to see in New Zealand, and that people care about what they're going to do, they soon come to their own realization what's going to work and what's not. So it's about gently guiding. You don't tell someone what they can and can't have. Just let them work it out for themselves with a bit of information fed through.
Man, it's so interesting. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but ultimately the central, all of the good artistic flair, practical construction ability, but for whether it be the architect or the main contractor, it comes down to, can they communicate well with the client? And part of the responsibility is on the client to, as you said before, be very brave and truthful and clear about what they want in their communication, so that you can work out if we're not all on the same page.
It does come back to this idea of the client being the head selector. They're building a team. And
and if you maybe you have a lot of strength about knowing what you want, but maybe you're not a great selector of that team. And it sounds like you, perhaps as an architect, bring a little bit of that selection piece. You mentioned about going out and procuring tenders, for example, from main contractors. Is that typical of architects to be involved in that part?
It's what most architects will do that, and they'll provide that as a service, the procurement.
And that overflow
and the administration,
monitoring
the role
of the construction as well.
Observation. Its reference is observation of the construction, and then it's administrating the contract between the builder and the client. And quite a few clients love the fact that they can chat to the builder and know that they're all part of a team, but they don't have to get involved in the nitty gritty of arguing or debating the value of what they're writing as a check that month.
It's interesting to me because I feel like almost the personality of the artistic creator, architect, but then the detailed technical side of administering the contract seems to perhaps be of the stereotype in my mind as maybe in conflict.
I think it raises the fact that architects have to have a wide range of skills, and that broadly speaking, when you're getting into larger projects where there's a lot of detail, there's a lot of artistry, you've got a team of people doing the job. And I am definitely at the more creative end of the spectrum within my role within the office, about leading the design and making sure the design is followed through right at the end of the project. But I've got technical guidance within the team who I go to just to understand the detail of a certain way of building something, to then look at how we can refine the aesthetic of that outcome. And then I've got other people who are just amazing at keeping their eye across the logistics of the process. So it's a great team. And some firms just aren't big enough to have a team. And you want to know that you're dealing with a team that is scaled relative to the value and the difficulty of the project you've got in mind. Definitely.
And what's the cost for engaging an architect or engaging yourself to look after the entire process? Does it vary if you're not doing the administration of the contract?
That's right. We split our engagement into two processes. One is the design through to the documentation of the design. So we're resolving what is the solution, the artistry of it, the function of it. Then we're documenting all the technical requirements that will be expected of a builder to create it. That first package typically sits at 10%, all that work. That's including all the interiors. That's doing all the kitchens, the bathrooms, the lighting, the electrical, fireplaces, stairwells. If the builder is going to install it, then we have to design it and document it and schedule it. Tapware, door handles. If it's going to, if it's in the house, it's in that package. As projects get more higher and higher in value, that percentage comes down, because if you're dealing with a $10 million house, for example, that would be a crazy fee. So it drops quite quickly over and above 4 million. The second phase of the project is obtaining the builder and observing the building program and administering the contract, and that's another 2.5%. So it's 12.5% total, start to finish, for projects up to $4 million.
Yeah. I imagine because there's a bit of a timeline before things actually get built, from the moment you start considering the project to actually, turning the key at home, it's a long time. Are you an early indicator of market resurgence, do you think?
Yeah, but certainly architects really struggle in the downtimes, because if there's a lack of confidence in the marketplace about how is the economy going, how are the people with businesses, how much confidence they have that their business is going to generate them some profit to go and spend on the things they want. When things are good, we get phone calls, and when it goes quiet, for example, when interest rates triple across a short period of time, we're riding those highs and lows. And
what are your predictions for the New Zealand real estate market?
I like to leave that to Tony Alexander.
Yeah, but I'm not going to let you off the hook, because you get to see, I guess, what the general public don't, in terms of the number of inquiries you're getting and the booked work that you've got lining up, and based on what's happening for your business, and based on that, what would you predict?
And it feels to me like the tide's coming back in again, and it's been out for a while. So it's really nice to find that the inquiry is pretty strong at the moment. And for me, that means that our role, which is roughly 10% of someone's spend, they're confident that in a year's time, after they've got a design and some documentation to get building with, they're going to be happy to start spending the other 90% on the construction process. So in real terms, there's a feeling for me that businesses are looking forward with a degree of optimism, that they're planning to make changes and progression and investment in their life at a time when they're hopefully going to beat the rush as well, because in 2 years' time, 3 years' time,
everyone will be doing it.
If everyone's doing it, prices climb, supply and demand. But so now seems to be a time where the smart thinkers, the early adopters, they're saying, righto, it's worth it. All the signals are there. The OCRs come down. We're understanding that the immigration balance is going to start returning in favour of productivity. So I've got a lot of confidence. Fingers crossed I'm right.
It's all right. You're not an economist, but I do think it's always interesting to hear from people. And I think something you mentioned to me earlier, your clientele effectively running businesses often. They're not necessarily the old money clientele. They're the new money. They've made it. They're reliant on the success of those businesses to make decisions about what to do next. So it certainly seems to be a good indication of positivity in the market.
Yeah, well, they're the ones reading the tea leaves, and they're the ones taking the risk.
Yeah,
and they're certainly they're coming through. It's better than green shoots at the moment.
Yeah, fantastic. I think the architecture that I've seen is pretty special. I love the hearing some of the things that informed your, I guess, perspective of Kiwi landscape and contemporary architecture. Are there any other things about your kind of ethos or values that you would like to share with the audience?
Such a beautiful country. Yeah, I get quite emotional. I get quite emotional about the opportunity of putting beautiful things in beautiful places and connecting with people through that process. It's a really personal journey. It's very much driven by the fact that our landscapes are glorious, and they're playgrounds, and Kiwis right from the 70s, 60s, 50s have been building little batches around the place, and they can be humble little pods, little shacks, cribs. The family goes there, they enjoy it, they build this culture of getting amongst it, whether it's a dinghy or a super yacht. It's getting out on the harbour, it's getting down to the beaches, it's getting into the ski fields. There's a land to go and explore. And now that the value of buildings in this country are respected and on sale with an appreciation, it's creating opportunities to be artistic in that landscape as well. So I sort of get the absolute joy of seeing activity and people having fun and creating a space that expresses that fun that they get to look forward to, and that get passed on through generations if you do it well.
It's a joy to see just how much passion you bring to that, and how much you love this country, and what you get to create. It's very special.
David, it's been a pleasure having you. Honestly, it's we've interviewed a lot of people here, but it's always great to see somebody who's purely passionate about what they do, because that's come across from you, the way you talk architecture in general. We've always looked up to your work, and I think some of the work that you've done and some of the work that's upcoming, you can see there's a flair of artistry, but practical within reasons of you really understanding your client and really bringing their vision to life with a touch of class. And I think I'm one for like a big fan of your work, and I always look out for the things that come up and go, let's see what David's done next. So it's fantastic, and I even love the love you have for concrete and how you sort of embed that into your building. But it's not, concrete could easily come across as of such a cold material, but the way you add the warmth to it by making it so practical and embedding into the land itself, is phenomenal, and the love can be seen, and it's something that you can't describe, but just to see. And hopefully within this podcast we will have a lot of visuals to showcase people who can get a taste of your work, and we'll definitely put links of all your work for people that don't know you to get to know you more.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending this. We really appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Ponting.
Do you want to hit a home run in your property journey? If so, make sure to hit like, comment, and definitely subscribe so you do not miss out on any exciting episodes coming up.